Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is March 25th. On this day in 1991, a horrifying and brutal crime shook the town of Middletown, New York: the murder of Juliana Frank. Her death was shocking enough, but what nobody knew at the time was that her death was just the beginning of a killing spree that would leave the entire Hudson Valley in terror. Her murderer, Nathaniel White, would go on to claim the lives of 5 more women over the next year and a half, earning him the infamous title of the Hudson Valley serial killer. His case would not only expose a predator hiding in plain sight, but also highlight serious flaws in the criminal justice system. Flaws that allowed a violent offender to walk free and kill again. Let's get started. Juliana Frank was a 29-year-old Middletown, New York resident, and by all accounts, she was a loving mother and a hardworking woman. She had a vibrant spirit and deeply loved her 2 children. At the time of her murder, she was expecting her 3rd child and was excited about expanding her family. She worked various jobs to support herself and her kids and did whatever she needed to do to provide for them. But tragically, the future she was mapping out for her family was stolen from her in the most horrible way imaginable. Nathaniel White was born on July 28, 1960 in Poughkeepsie, New York. On paper, he was pretty unremarkable. He graduated from Poughkeepsie High School in 1979 and later joined the U.S. Army, serving from 1980 to 1983. But beneath the surface, there were serious warning signs. His post-military years were riddled with criminal activity, including robbery and assault. His offenses grew increasingly violent until he abducted a 16-year-old girl. It was after his conviction for this crime, but before he started serving his sentence, that he committed his first murder. On March 25, 1991, the body of Juliana Frank was found abandoned on railroad tracks in Middletown. The scene was horrific. She had been stabbed more than 40 times, and in a horrible act of cruelty, her unborn child had been cut from her body. Authorities struggled to comprehend the level of violence they were dealing with. This was more than just a murder, it was an act of pure brutality. Later, Nathaniel White admitted why he had killed Juliana in this way. He claimed that this murder was inspired by a scene in the movie RoboCop 2. In his own words, he said, quote, "The first girl I killed was from a RoboCop movie. I seen him cut somebody's throat, then take the knife and slit down the chest to the stomach and left the body in a certain position. With the first person I killed, I did exactly what I saw in the movie." End quote. Now, what's crazy is that he actually ended up going to prison after this for the abduction of the 16-year-old. But in a move that was absolutely shocking, he was eligible for parole after just a year. So he was back out on the streets in 1992. And that is when the horror in the Hudson Valley really started. Upon his release from prison, White continued his murderous rampage, victimizing another 5 women. His victims were all women who were vulnerable, trusting, or simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. The women he killed included Christine Klebb, a 14-year-old girl and the niece of White's girlfriend. She disappeared on June 29, 1992, and her body was found weeks later on August 4th. It was found near Echo Lake Road in Goshen. Laurette Huggins Revere, a 34-year-old mother of 3 and a close friend of White's girlfriend, was also killed. She was murdered in her own home on July 10, 1992. Angelina Hopkins and Brenda Whiteside, cousins who are aged 23 and 20, were last seen leaving a tavern in Poughkeepsie with White on July 20th, 1992. Their bodies were found in an abandoned farmhouse on August 4th. Adrian Hunter, 27, who was found stabbed to death inside the remnants of the Hillcrest Manor restaurant in Goshen on July 30th, 1992. Once White was released from jail and continued his killing spree, it was like he couldn't be stopped. In the end, though, it wasn't law enforcement who cracked the case. It was family members of one of the victims. Angelina Hopkins' sister Cecilia and their mother refused to sit back and wait for police to solve the crime. So they took matters into their own hands, interviewing witnesses and gathering crucial information, which eventually led investigators straight to Nathaniel White. On August 2nd, 1992, White was arrested. He quickly confessed to all 6 murders in detail. The case was closed, but the horror of what happened was far from over. Nathaniel White faced multiple counts of murder. His defense team tried to argue that he was mentally ill, and they tried to secure an insanity plea. But the prosecution presented damning forensic evidence and eyewitness testimony. The jury saw through White's defense, and on April 14, 1993, Nathaniel White was convicted on all counts. Judge Jeffrey Berry handed down a sentence of 150 years to life, ensuring that White would never walk free again. Nathaniel White is currently serving his sentence at the Elmira Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison in New York. At 64 years old, his life is now confined to a cell where he has little contact with the outside world. For a man who once stalked women in the Hudson Valley, his reality today is one of almost complete isolation. The Hudson Valley community was left deeply shaken by these murders, but thanks to the determination of Angelina Hopkins' family, the killer that roamed the Hudson Valley was put to a stop. Juliana Frank, along with Christine, Laurette, Angelina, Brenda, and Adrienne, were more than just victims. They were mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends. Their families still grieve, and their memories still matter. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. Be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!